Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are and whenever you are. Hope you're enjoying the Festival in the Box sessions so far, or if this is the first one, I hope you enjoy the sessions. I'm delighted to say that we're joined this morning, as it is here, by Ian O'Brien, who is the distiller / communications manager at Waterford Distillery in Ireland, and he's going to tell us a bit about the Waterford 1.1 Gratansbrook. So I'm going to bring Ian in now. Good morning, Ian.
Morning. How are you?
I'm very well. How are things with you?
Not too bad at all. Settling into a nice grey summer morning here in Waterford, but everything is good. Everything's good.
Well, you must have done something wrong in a previous life or something.
I think I've done many previous things wrong, really. Trying to redeem myself now over the last few years.
Anyway, Ian, look, very excited to have you on and have you introduce the 1.1 Waterford Gratansbrook, partly because I haven't tasted it myself yet, and partly because obviously you're a new distillery that has now got mature whiskey, and that's got to be something to celebrate. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at the distillery and what you've done at the distillery?
Yeah, so basically Waterford, myself, I was a distiller here for the last 5 years and have moved into the dark side of the brand. But I suppose back to Waterford itself, we started up in 2016 with the concept of terroir and what barley can bring to the flavour and the dynamic of whiskies. Mark Rainier, our CEO or owner or maestro, he had already started this with Bucklady on Isla, and he continued on his work here, and this is what we do now. We do single farm origin bottles, and we're branching off into Arcadian series stuff like barley and old style barley varieties, and with organic and biodynamic, which will be coming out this year, and some big plans down the line for other little things, but they're a good few years away yet.
Very good. So tell us about the bottling itself, because I know there's a few 1.1s, I believe.
Yeah, we have a few. Yeah, well, we have 97 farms on our books at the moment.
Wow.
It's a tricky little thing to open the bin lock. You just pop it.
I have to say, it's one of the most impressive bottles I've seen for a while. I love the glass stopper.
Wow. Yeah, Gratansbrook 1.1. Basically, the farmer is Andrew Bergen, and he's from County Kildare, up in Athy in County Kildare. It's about an hour's drive from here. So he started growing barley from us at the very start in 2015. So our barley, I suppose the farm thing and the barley thing really started in 2015, a year before like any kind of distilling happening or brewing happening here and stuff like that here in Waterford. So he was one of the first guys that we came in, and this whiskey is one of the oldest ones. It's about 3 years and 10 months, coming up to 4 years old. And this was picked specifically just for a UK release. Most of them before that were either Irish releases or worldwide releases. And this year we decided that we'd do some specific releases for different markets. We've done some for the Netherlands and Belgium and France and Germany. And we said we'd do one for the UK as well, and just give them something specifically for them to bite into, I suppose. And we are trying to move into the UK scene a little bit.
Fantastic. So the Gratansbrook on the pronunciation, if it's not right, on the label refers to the farm, the single farm that you grow the barley.
That's the farm. That's where Andrew Bergen, that's his name of his farm, is the 1.1. I suppose just to talk about the 1.1. One is the first one. The one is the harvest. So the 2015 is the first harvest from Gratansbrook, and the 0.1 is the first bottling from that harvest.
Mm-hmm.
So we have released some farms that we've had a 1.2 with them as well at the very start. But we're moving back from that because we have the big release is coming out this September, which I think Gratansbrook is actually a part of, the assembly of the cuvee, which is coming out in September.
Oh, very interesting. Well, we can talk more about that later. So in terms of flavour profile, what would you say to viewers? What would they expect to find in the Gratansbrook 1.1?
I think it's got a beautiful nose. It's got, like, I get red apples, and it's a nice. It's still barley driven, and it's got that young spirit to it.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, you can definitely taste the grain.
Yeah, without saying it's a grain whiskey, but it's very barley forward.
Yes, that's what. Sorry, I mean, you can almost smell the when you walk into the mash tun room. And,
that's right. You can still get that. That's still coming through even after this distillation. So we're still getting those flavors, and for us, we're trying to demonstrate that every one of these farms have their own different flavor profile that comes from the barley-driven spirit at the very start. We all know that everything we put into we do have to cask stuff. It doesn't magically become whiskey, I've noticed that I think Gratansbrook is one of the best. Actually, I think it's got that little extra time in maturation, and I think it's developed a lot. And I think for me, what I always thought about Gratansbrook, it's the one to sit with. It's not a wham bam thank you man type of whiskey. It's something that you sit with all night, and you could easily just sit and nose with it and just enjoy it, really. And it's simple in its making and stuff like that, but it's got a lot of complexity on it for something that's 4 years.
Oh, that's lovely. Now, obviously, Mark and very well known for operating Bruichladdich. And obviously at Bruichladdich they did a lot of cask experimentations and lots of different red wine, white wine casks, sherry casks, etc. Is that a policy that's been carried over to Waterford, or is a little bit less so?
No, it's the exact same thing. We don't do finishes as such. So what we do is we have 4 different cask types that we use. So we use first fill bourbon, and then we do a virgin oak. It's either US or French or European, sorry. And then we use VDN, which is Vin de Natural, which is like your sherries and your Madeiras and stuff like that. So we use VDN as just more a grouping thing for those things. But in the breakdown on the terroir code that's on the back of the bottle, if you put in that, it'll tell you exactly what VDN type cask was used in the making of this whiskey. Mm-hmm. And we also use French premium red wine casks as well. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he has carried that on. So every single farm that we distill, we put directly into these casks at the very start. And then when we're making the whiskey, we bring those cask variety, or we use those casks to assemble the single malt at the end. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Before bottling.
And are you double distilling or triple distilling?
We double distill.
Okay.
We double distill, so we kind of carry that back over from here. We've dropped the E in our whiskey as well.
Well, that's pretty controversial.
It's controversial, but there's been a lot of, even down through the years in Irish whiskey, there was some variations of the spelling that was used, and I think even Paddy a couple of years ago bought out a centenary bottle, and they took the E back out of their whiskey and put it up as a whiskey back, so it'll hark back to olden times back here in Ireland.
Yeah.
But double distillation, which is not very common here in Ireland, especially with the pot still industry that's going on and stuff like that. But double distilled fermentation is up between 120 and 140 hours long fermentations. It's pretty Scotch-like, I suppose, when you think of the way that we produce our whiskies. We bottle at 50% too, so it gives it a little bit of oomph. We don't want to cheat on the people that, because I think at 50 you get a nice balance that the flavors can come through. And if you do find a little bit, just a little drop of water, and it really opens up into something that's completely as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that just now. It's very interesting though, because I've been talking to producers from all over the world for this festival in a box, and it's quite encouraging to see the number of distillers really kind of drilling down to the grassroots, to the barley, if you like, and they're being proud to display the distillate character rather than it being overly influenced by the wood, which can be which can be a good thing. If you like a big sherry cask whiskey, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think really a lot of people want to taste where the whiskey actually comes from rather than what it's been stored in.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think what we do here at Waterford is we more focus on flavour. And I think there's lots of new distilleries out there that are starting off like that, like the Thompson Brothers and Dornoch Distillery in Scotland. They're working with yeast and stuff like that, and trying to adapt to adjust the flavors with their yeast. But just to get back to the barley thing, we believe that where the barley is actually grown has a specific impact on the flavor of the actual spirit that we produce in the first place. And then it's been put into the casks, and we select the casks that we think for that particular farm would work well. Like in Gratansbrook, we use two French wine, a Margaux and a Tour, and we use sherry casks, but we use a fortified wine from the south of France called Riveslates, and we use those casks. And I think it really imbibes something into this spirit that Andrew Berger made grew in Gratansbrook with the barley at the first stage. So I think it's those, as you said yourself, getting back to the grassroots of things and trying to figure out whiskey, because I think whiskey has just become more of a commodity or something, and there is an art to making whiskey and maturing whiskey and putting it together and stuff like that. And I think the new guys, the younger guys like us and some of the new ones in Scotland and Wales as well, and Bimber in London, that we're going back and trying to explore and examine again what whiskey is about. There's a new age of whiskey drinker coming through too, like a younger whiskey drinker who are more geeky and really want to know about what goes into whiskeys these days. As you said, there is that certain group of people who just love a sherry bomb. The Germans love a sherry bomb. That's what they love. But we're just trying to maybe educate people a little bit more, I think, about whiskey. And that's not being pompous and stuff like that. We're just trying to be more transparent and let people know how it comes about in the first place,
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think it is a very exciting new age we're moving into, where just telling us it's 10-year-old single malt that's been matured in sherry casks or whatever it is just not enough anymore.
Yeah, I think I agree. And also from an Irish perspective, like, it's usually the pot still whiskey is the most predominantly known for Ireland, but that really broke down into was just the IDL, Middleton, and a few places like that, and we lost so many distilleries there, and we lost so much knowledge, and we lost so many people that we're learning again, and I suppose we're doing single malt, and I suppose we're exploring what we're going to do here, and we've lots of little things coming up. I suppose that's the thing, and it's nice for us. I think it's nice for us, and we didn't believe the reception we would get, I suppose. And I suppose some of it has been positive and some of it has been negative. But that's everything in life, really, I suppose. And you just take the
well, Mark's not known for being too in the background about his views.
Not shy, no.
He's not shy about coming forward, is he? So all power to him for sticking his neck on the line, because if nothing else, he's got full faith and belief in what he's doing and what you guys are doing. So that's all fair.
And like in the middle of setting up a Waterford distillery. He was setting up a rum distillery out in Grenada as well, and that's going to come to fruition now this year as well, with our first bottlings of that stuff coming through. So that's single farms, the same thing, the terroir thing. So he's dogged, to say the least.
Well, I definitely look forward to that as well. I've got a burgeoning rum interest, which well, since the pandemic, I've not been quite as active in tasting new rums. But once things open up again and get to more shows and things like that, that'd be good. So aside from the fact that you're obviously focusing very, very greatly on the barley side of things, where it comes from, the variety and so on, and then the casks themselves, is there anything other in the distilling process or the fermentation process that also makes you stand apart?
Well, in the distilling part of it, we don't go wham bam. We distill the farm separately as well. There's no crossover as such in what we distill. We store all our barley separately, each farm separately, and then we distill them separately, and then they're cast separately. There's no crossovers, and that's the single farm part of it. But we go low, and our cuts are pretty small. We collect about 2,000 litres per cut on hearts, and really slow. Our fermentations are long too. They're up to nearly 4 or 5 days long. We thermoregulate them. We can control them near the end, so we can get a more estery flavour on a secondary fermentation at the end. We don't really want to mess around with it so much. We want it to be as natural as possible. We want to let it know that every farm that we do is mashed and brewed, distilled the same way as each bottle. And I suppose, and with the cask policy too, we're not hiding anything. As I said, there's a terroir code on the back of this bottle here. I think you can maybe make it out there. This one here. If you put that in on our website, on our terroir page, if you put in that, it will give you absolutely so much detail on every aspect of what we did and who distilled it, from the how much rainfall was on that particular farm for the year that the harvest was going on, sunlight, the hours of fermentation, the cask types, the amount of cask types, where the casks came from. Like the bourbon ones came from Haven Hill and somewhere else, I don't know, the Virgin American oak came from Kelvin in Kentucky. And like, as I said, we have the sherry cask and the other side casks and that and stuff like that too.
Wonderful. So in terms of fermentation, because you're obviously working with a number of different varietals from different areas, I know you say you can, but do you quite often find that you have to shorten or lengthen the fermentation times in accordance to the different varieties you're using?
Not really as such. It wouldn't be as we wouldn't mess around with it as much as you'd actually think. Actually, mostly with the varietal methods, we work with it at the mashing stage, actually, so we can convert our proteins, our starches and protein levels into the sugary wort that we use. There, we kind of have to do a little bit of adjustment, and because we don't have the usual setup of a lauter tun here, we have a horizontal mash filter where we squeeze everything. We need to work with that we need to keep an eye on that a lot, because we don't want to gum up the whole place, and that's not very good, and it has happened a few times here. Even back in the Guinness days, we used to use the same filter here. We use the same process for that, for the brewing, and we need to keep an eye on that. And this is where we want to extract the most flavour from the barley itself, is from the mash. Mm-hmm. The fermentation itself is you do get your estery flavors and stuff like that from the fermentation as it goes on with the yeast and stuff like that, but it's at the brewing stage. And our head brewer Neil Conway he's phenomenal what he extracts from the actual barley at that stage. The fermentations themselves, they're mostly between up 130 hours and up. we just wait for the ABV to the PG to come down on our fermentations, and we just check them every 6 hours. The guys, the distillers, they check them every 6 hours to make sure that we are ready to distill. And when we're ready to distill, it takes approximately about 5 to 6 days to distill the 4 washbacks that will be comprised as one single farm.
Wow. Yeah, it's just fascinating that all aspects of the production process are being utterly dissected and really analyzed. Whereas I think some years ago it was just brew it. And distill it.
Like the super distilleries in Scotland, they're just producing components for blends or something. It's just tossed out and stuff like that. Where we do take our time and everything is separated. And yeah, I can understand where it is. Yeah, it's different. It's different.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me, if this, obviously it's exciting that you're releasing whiskey and you've obviously got plans for the future. Are you able to tell us about any of those plans, or you mentioned a bottling in September that we should be looking out for?
The Cuvée is probably going to be our flagship bottle coming from the few years. So the Cuvée will be an assemblage of farms that we selected from the first year in 2016 that we put together to create a layer of flavoured whiskies. It's still a single malt, but it just demonstrates what we can do and what we can put together here as a single malt here. The SFOs is the kind of the geeky part of it and stuff like that. So they're the components of what this Cuvée will become. So that's going to be exciting. I think that's going to be exciting. That's going to be our biggest bottling to date. I think it's coming up to about 70,000 bottles worldwide for that. It's going to retail around the same price as the single farm. So I think it's 60 or 70 sterling or something for you guys in the UK. Yeah, that's going to be exciting. And then we have the next part of our Arcadian series, which is our throwback to old styles of whiskies. We have released an organic, and we're going to release a biodynamic whiskey, and that's coming out in October, I think, actually. Yeah, October, and that's going to be very exciting too, actually. Also going to be a worldwide release. We have a few little mini cuvées coming out over the summer as well, to coincide with shows. Some whiskey shows that might actually be happening again coming up soon. We're doing Whiskey Live in London. We're doing Paris. We're doing some other European shows. That's going to be nice to get out of the road, because when we started releasing first, we were in the middle of COVID. We haven't been able to show the world what we have been making, and it's okay to. And it's very good to have these online things to do it, but it's nice to read people's body language and face. It's the real world is what we want to actually see, and see our whiskey out there too.
Of course, and you're certainly not alone in that. Yeah. I think, the amount of people I've spoken to, quite a number of distillers actually, who've similar situations where they started bottling mature stock either just before the pandemic or during the pandemic. Yeah, it's not been ideal, but like you say, at least we've had this. If we hadn't had 10 years ago, we wouldn't be able to do this. So we're quite lucky in some ways.
Yes.
Just finally, Ian, if you wouldn't mind, just from a personal point of view, what excites you or concerns you perhaps about the global whiskey industry as a whole? Is there anything that turns you on or off?
For me, I'm a whiskey drinker anyway. I'm probably more predominantly a Scotch drinker or stuff like that. I'm very community. I think we need to get back to where it was maybe a few years ago. COVID hasn't helped, I suppose. We haven't been to the Fesh in Islay, we haven't been to Campbelltown, we haven't been to these places, we haven't been anywhere in Ireland even. We can't even get outside our bloody county for so long that we've been stuck here. And I think we need to get back to that community thing. I think there's there was, when I started getting involved in whiskey, personally myself, I think there was such a good buzz around people and stuff like that. And I'm all about that. And I think we just need to find our ways a little way back from that. I think maybe we could step back from social media a bit and stuff like that. I think the messages can get crossed over and maybe misunderstood a little bit. And I think just sitting with these people, sitting at the festivals and having a dram, and that's the thing for me. I think there's a bit of a malaise in the, I suppose, in the whiskey scene itself at the moment. And I think we just need to get back out there, get our jabs, if we're into getting our jabs or not, and just moving back out there and getting to see the world again, and meeting all our friends that we haven't seen. Sometimes we don't have friends as such, like close friends, but people that you'd meet at shows and stuff that you go, oh, I haven't seen in so long. And that's the thing I love about whiskey. I think it's the camaraderie, it's the friends of it, it's the having the chats, talking about whiskeys, telling stories about what you've been up to and stuff like that. And I think we probably don't have stories, so it could be another year interface, because we're sick to death of COVID stories. What are you doing? Why are you asking? You know I've done nothing.
Yeah.
I miss the scene big time. I love going to the shows myself, not just for Waterford or anything like that, just on a personal level. And that's my thing.
Yeah. I suppose the one thing with COVID is it's replaced the weather as the favourite subject.
It's replaced the weather. Unless you're Dutch, they still talk about the weather. They love the weather. Oh my God, it's the first thing they talk about in the morning. But yeah. It's and it's always bad. It's always too wet, or it's always too hot for the Dutch. I only jest. I'm Irish, so we kind of have to be cheerful about whatever we get, and it's usually damp, drizzle, horizontal type of rain type of thing for most of the year.
Well, it's not that much better here, to be honest with you. Now, listen, when things do open up again, finally, are people able to come and visit you? Yeah,
we're still waiting on government approvals and stuff about this for how many people gatherings we can have in one place and stuff like that. But yes, we will be up, and that gate is always open for anybody to come in here, and they just drop us a line and we bring them in. We don't do the bus load type of thing, but for people who really want to see the place, that's no problem at all. There's always someone here to show somebody around, and they always get a good trip and a good tour around the place and stuff like that. We're in the middle of setting up, building a shop here, and then selling online as well and stuff like that. But it's the guys there in the shops that we want to give our knowledge to, and we, just to push it that way. Like it's not easy for everybody to get here, you know what I mean? But it's nice to do these things and have a chat with yourself, Eddie, about stuff like this, just to get across what we do here,
Yes. Well, I will make the trip at some point when it's safe to do so, and hopefully we can. Well, hopefully I'll see you at a show before that, but yeah, it'd be nice to share a dram at least. Ian, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege. Thank you for coming on today. Really thoroughly enjoying the Gratansbrook. It is the perfect breakfast whiskey as far as I'm concerned.
We'll all say that though.
But slander to yourself and to everyone at Waterford. Thanks once again. Thanks to the viewers at home. Hope you've enjoyed the session, and hopefully see you in real life soon.